Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah al-Kareem. Alhamdulillah, and welcome back to another episode of Life's Adornments, where we're discussing child rearing, its virtues, its benefits, its many ups and downs, and how are we to rear our children in a way that is according to the Quran and the Sunnah of our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Today we will be talking about tarbiyya imaniya, or raising the children with the idea of theology in mind, with a God consciousness, if you will. Many times when rearing children, that's one of the last things that parents may think about. You think about the well-being of the child, the education of the child. Does the child eat? Does the child have a good education? But many times parents leave out for a child to know God, for a child to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the scholars say that one of the first things that a person should know, the mukhallaf should know, is Allah wa Rasulah bi sifati. They should know Allah and His Prophet and their attributes so they can have a correct aqidah. To help us with these matters, we have Sheikh Luqman al-Hakim, who is a teacher at Zad Academy and KIU, and has been an imam and a teacher for over 30 years. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Okay, Sheikh, let's get into this aqidah. Why is it important for a parent to teach their children aqidah, the correct aqidah?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala abdihi wa rasulihi al-amin. Nabiyyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. First of all, aqidah, the name itself, the terminology itself, was not mentioned in the Quran or in the Sunnah. And this is why a lot of the ignorant and imbeciles about Islam tend to take an offensive or a defensive position, saying that this is not in Islam, this is not from the Quran, and they fight it. And they fight it not because they want to defend Quran and Sunnah, rather because it goes against their deviant beliefs. So what do you mean, Sheikh? Well, the Prophet told us, alayhi salatu wasalam, that this ummah of his will be divided into 73 sects. All of them will be in hell except one. And the 72 sects who are in hell, it is not because they have chosen a fiqhi, legislative difference. So they put their hands in prayer under the belly, or they put it on the chest. No, this is something totally different. It deals with aqidah. It deals with their belief. It deals with their conviction. It deals with whether they follow the sunnah or innovate. These are the 72 sects. So it is related to aqidah. So what is aqidah? Aqidah is what you believe in. It comes from the word uqdah, which is a knot. And this knot is what constitutes your belief. So anything that deals with Allah, His beautiful names and attributes, or anything that deals with the Day of Judgment, with the angels, with the scriptures, with the messengers of Allah and prophets, with the Day of Judgment, with the unseen, all of these are part of your aqidah. So if someone says, I pray, I fast, I do the whole 9 yards, but I don't believe that there is heaven or hell, we say, sorry, you're not a Muslim. Why? Because your aqidah is not correct, it's corrupt. Someone says, yeah, I believe in everything you say, but I don't believe in the presence or in the existence of jinn. Said, well, this is mentioned in the Quran. Falsifying it or disbelieving in it makes you a kafir. So what is most important in our religion is not praying. It is not fasting. It is not giving money to the poor. The first thing that we have to correct and concentrate on is aqidah, what you believe in. And this is what the Prophet manifested, alayhi salatu wasalam, to all of his companions. Whenever he dispatched an army, he used to tell the leader of this army to call people to the tawheed. And this is mentioned in Sahih Imam Muslim. And yuwahhidullah. And so many, by the way, du'at in America and elsewhere, they fight tawheed. They say it's not in the Quran and the Sunnah because they don't know the Quran nor the Sunnah. And not only that, they even want people to avoid anything to do with Sunnah and focus only on the Quran. And this is part of the 72 sects known as Al-Quraniyun, who neglect the Sunnah totally. And this is an act and a belief of apostasy. May Allah have mercy on us all. So we should focus on Aqeedah. Aqeedah means that you believe in the oneness of Allah through Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, the Lordship, Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah, the worship, Tawheed al-Asma wa Sifat, the beautiful names and beautiful attributes of Allah Azza wa Jal. If you have these three combined within you and your belief is solid, then this is step one in Aqeedah. Now this has to be cascaded to our children. At an early age, we teach our children to rely and to depend on Allah Azza wa Jal. This goes in many, many different aspects. For example, we give only beautiful attributes to Allah Azza wa Jal. And this is extremely important because in normal families of Muslim, when, I know it in Arabic, I don't know how they say it in English, but so many times we make the mistake of associating Allah's name to bad actions. So if a child does something disgusting, what do we say? Disgusted, we usually say, Allah yigrifak. May Allah make you disgusted. But attributing disgust to Allah Azza wa Jal as one of His actions is inappropriate. When we see someone who does something inappropriate to Allah, He khissak. Allah does this or Allah does that to you. Attributing bad actions and attributes to Allah Azza wa Jal is bad aqeedah. So we have to upbring the children on only associating good things with Allah. This is one part. Also, when it comes to Allah's attributes. So the child asks, where's Allah? What do we say? This question, if asked to deviant sects, they would say, Allah is everywhere. This is not true. Allah Azza wa Jal is not everywhere. Allah, as described in His Quran, He described Himself to be upon the throne. And the Prophet ﷺ explained that when he asked a slave girl, where is Allah? And this is the Prophet's asking ﷺ. So we should also ask our children, where is Allah? And the girl said, pointing above her, above the heavens, she said. Allah is above everything. So he said, who am I? She said, you are the Prophet of Allah ﷺ. So the Prophet said to her owner, set her free. She's a believer. We have to bring our children to this understanding from an early age. I know one sister who had a 2 or 3 years child, and every time she sees him when playing with her, she says to him, where is Allah? And the child says, Fis sama, and he points up. So from an early age, okay, the boy doesn't understand, but if you make this in him, this would help decades later on. You should always bring to his attention the food on the table. Okay, maybe the Christians have grace before eating. The Muslims don't have this. They say, Bismillah, in the name of Allah. So everything they do, they begin in the name of Allah. So before eating, we say, Bismillah, in the name of Allah, we eat. We begin to eat. And this is in the hadith of Umar ibn Abi Salama. May Allah be pleased with him and with his father, who was a stepson of the Prophet ﷺ. He came to eat, and he was a child, 4 years, 5 years of age, and the Prophet taught him. And this shows you the importance of teaching aqeedah, teaching religion to children at an early age. Some people say they're too young to understand. No, you're too old to understand. They're not young. They can learn. And they come and ask you questions later on, which shows that they were aware of everything. So the Prophet told the boy, Ya ghulam, sammillah. He said, O son, O boy, say Bismillah. Before you eat, you have to begin by the name of Allah. وَكُلْ بِيَمِينِكَ. You're eating with your left, and this is haram in Islam. You have to eat with your right hand. وَكُلْ مِمَّا يَلِيكَ. And eat from what's in front of you instead of going and stretching in front of others to pick the food. This is inappropriate. Etiquettes taught to a child of 4 or 5 years of age so that he would learn. We need to have this with a lot of wisdom to our children. What do you mean, Sheikh? Akhi, if you just monitor your child and only see the negative things, don't do this, do that, don't do this, do that, he would never learn. On the contrary, he would probably learn how to cheat you, how to do it behind your back. But if you give him instructions and at the same time give him encouragement, MashaAllah, look at him. He always eats with his right hand. This sticks at the back of his head. Oh, my father is praising me. He's smart. MashaAllah, my child is generous. We went to the masjid and we saw a beggar. He asked me for money and he gave it to the beggar. This puts a lot of positivity in him. So when you have money to give to someone who's in need, don't give it to him, give it to the child. And tell the child to give it to that person. He'd learn how to be generous and to give rather than always asking. Other aspects of Aqidah is to teach the child that whoever is putting the food on the table, it's not me, it's not mom, this is from Allah. And when there's a gift given to him, oh, thank you, daddy, thank Allah. Then after that you can thank me. Allah has given us this. Look at Allah's favors upon us. Look, you can walk, you can talk, you can see, you can touch things. There are so many people who are deprived from this. Allah has favored you upon all of those. You make him appreciate Allah's gift and blessings over him. And you can cascade from there to elsewhere. Daddy, I cut myself. Daddy, I hit my hand in the wall. It's hurting so much. He said, Alhamdulillah, my son. This was decreed by Allah Azza wa Jal, and we believe that everything was decreed for a wisdom. Then you start to explain to him how Allah owns everything, how Allah created everything, how Allah is knowledgeable, powerful, fair, and just. With all these feelings in him and acknowledging Allah's beautiful names and attributes, he tends to be more mellow, chill. It's Allah's decree, it happened. Unlike someone who's always on edge, why is this, why is that? He understands, whether thinking about it or not, but he can, relate to it.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. We're going to pause for a short break, and then we'll come back to discussing this crucial matter of Aqidah and how to rectify the matters of Aqidah within the child at an early age. And that will also trickle us into other matters as well. Viewers, stay tuned. We'll be right back. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to our second segment of Life's Adornments, where today we're talking about tarbiyya imaniya, or taking the time to rear your children in a way that they are God conscious, they are conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they understand His attributes, and they have a correct and appropriate belief about Allah, about His prophets, about the Quran, His books, about the Qadr, and the things that were mentioned in the Hadith. So we're talking today about how crucial is it to begin at an early age with this in the prospect of parenting. We last took off Sheikh Asim. We're discussing about the stations of Aqidah, the different ways that they're sectioned off. And you mentioned the first thing, which is to a child to understand, as we mentioned in the hadith, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as we know, this is a contentious point. I remember when I was younger and I was studying Aqidah, and when someone would say to me that Allah is, this is the position of Allah, as a young child, I remember I would sit down and I would think about a person, or in the sky, sitting on a throne, because my young mind could only comprehend this. So that caused inside of me a lot of confusion. Later on, I studied the qawl of Imam Malik when he was asked about istawa, when he said that, the istawa ma'ruf, that is known, the kayfiyya is no one knows it, and su'al anha bid'ah. So do you think that at an early age to introduce them to such issues of aqidah in a way that they don't understand, how do you sort of address that?
Well, first of all, you have to understand that the Prophet himself, alayhi salatu wasalam, told us that every newborn is born upon fitrah. So this is instilled in them, this fitrah, this nature. They know Allah Azza wa Jal exists. They know that Allah is above all. So when you relate them to the Quran and the Sunnah and you tell them Allah is above His throne in a way that fits His majesty subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah does not need the throne, Allah does not need the universe, Allah is bigger than anything that could cross your mind, they tend to believe without going into details or asking about how. This is part of the upbringing of the children. And whenever they come and try to draw a picture, and you say, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ, there's nothing like unto Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whatever you think Allah is like is totally different than that. And if the children a little bit grown up, you can explain to them that this life is bound by 3 dimensions that we know of. So it's the length, it's the width, it's the height. But we can't understand that there are more than these dimensions. So if they can, which I don't doubt they would, understand the theory of relativity of Einstein, and there's the dimension of time, which is not entirely true, but it's there. And when it comes to the unseen, there is a 5th and 6th and maybe more dimensions that we're not aware of. How would it be possible for the sun that we see to prostrate at the throne before rising up again? We don't understand this. And we can't comprehend it because it falls under different dimensions that we do not realize in this world. That is why the Prophet ﷺ, on the miraculous night journey, saw Musa praying in his grave. Then a while later saw him in Jerusalem, and he led him in prayer. And when he was ascended to the heavens, he saw him there. So how is this possible? This is something beyond our comprehension. And to believe is what Islam is based on. So this is what we try to have our children understand and believe in. If you look at the Quran and the Sunnah, you will find the emphasis of the belief of the Day of Judgment. مَنْ كَانَ يُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ. Whoever believes in Allah and the Day of Judgment. Why is that? Such a belief would make the child immune from sinning when in privacy. Islam is really marvelous and great religion. Children who are 9 years of age, 10 years of age, thirsty, yet they fast in hot days. When they make wudu, what is preventing them from swirling water and swallowing it? They know that Allah is watching. Where did they get this knowledge? From their parents, who always tell them that, okay, whatever you are gonna do, Allah is watching you. So once a child remembers this throughout his life, wallahi, this would have one of the greatest impact on him.
Yes.
Because even if he's alone, he's aware that Allah is watching him. So he refrains from doing haram. While others who are non-Muslims, the most important thing is that you do not get caught. Anyone who is a non-Muslim would tell you, yes, I'm a law-abiding citizen, providing that I do not get caught. So I can cheat the system. I can cheat IRS. I can evade taxations or whatever. I can do things professionally as long as legally nobody can catch me. This is okay. How do you feel when you go to bed at night? This is beside the point. A Muslim is unlike this. Muslims know that they have to be acknowledged, they have to acknowledge that Allah is watching them. So even if I'm tempted to do something, I refrain because though nobody is watching me, Allah is and recording everything I do.
Yeah, and this is exactly the point I was getting at, because when I later asked this question, I was giving some practical things of Aqidah that really stuck with me my whole life. So it's giving these are the attributes of Allah, and anything that goes against that, it couldn't be possible. And you know, even I remember talking about practicality. My father, we had a business where he would buy real houses and we'll fix them up ourselves, like you know, renovate them. So my father had a truck full of tools, you know, and they were essential for doing the work. And every morning, like after Fajr, I would go, my job was to go and start the car up when it's cold, so the car can be warm and we can go. So one morning I went out to start the car and I realized that someone had stole all of the tools in the truck.
SubhanAllah.
Everything. I mean, a year's worth of building worth of tools. And I started crying wide awake as if I had bought the tools myself, right? And I went to go tell my father and he said, okay, qadrullah. And that was it. And to this day, that was one of the most profound things that ever happened to me, because I learned the qadr of Allah. Like I was flipping out, like how can you be so calm? Let's go find them. What are we going to do? The dunya is over. But he said, no, Allah is the one that gave it to me and Allah took it away. So like practicality, what are ways that we can, like in these little teachable moments that we can teach Aqidah. It's not necessarily textbook, but it's still the way the Prophet taught.
And your father was not classified to be a scholar or a student of knowledge.
Yes.
He's a normal Muslim. He's your everyday Joe. Yet, this is why, this is a perfect example why normal Muslims don't commit suicide. Why normal Muslims preserve their sanity and they don't have, you know, like psychotic illnesses that makes them hallucinate or turns them into insane people. On the contrary, alhamdulillah, the vast majority of Muslims are easygoing. Whatever happens to them, no matter how hard the calamity is, they acknowledge this is from Allah Azza wa Jal. It was predestined and written 50,000 years before Allah created the creation. So a calamity takes place, I'm saddened by that, but I brush it and move on, because this is something that Allah had prescribed. I can't do anything about it but to be tolerant and patient. So when a calamity takes place, I have two options: whether to wail, shout, cry, bang my head on the wall, but the calamity will remain as it is, nothing will change, or to praise Allah and to be patient, and the calamity will remain as it is, yet I'll be rewarded at the side of Allah. This is how Muslims think. And I remember reading maybe 15, 20 years ago, maybe more, Christopher Reeve, known as Superman.
Yes.
And this guy's article was, I think it's in Newsweek on Times. I read it, though I don't read English often, but I was flying, I think, and I've read it on the plane. I was captivated. The guy was a superstar, a Hollywood actor, married to a beautiful woman, had 4 children, healthy, beautiful 4 children, and he was a horse rider, you know, jumping these fences. I don't know what they call them, Olympic jumping or whatever. And he had everything. He had fame, wealth, and all of a sudden, he gets an accident where he falls off his horse and breaks his neck. So he was, in seconds, paralyzed from the neck down. He went into rehabilitation because he had problems with respiratory systems. He could not breathe, and they put him on a ventilator. After like few months, he started to have interviews. And he was telling us that he almost gave up and wanted to commit suicide and to die. But he knew that this is something that God, according to him, to Allah, has prescribed, and he has to be patient. Wallah, I was reading it and I almost felt the tears coming out of my eyes. This guy is almost a Muslim. We need someone to speak to him, but at the time I had no possible way of doing that. And unfortunately, he died a couple of years later after opening a foundation for spinal cord injuries and doing many, many things that a lot of the people would concave on themselves and, just give up life altogether. So the belief in Allah's decree, the belief that Allah owns everything, once we manage to put this in our children, it would make them grow seeing the world different than anyone else.
Yeah, what's beautiful is the simplicity of Aqidah that the Sahabas had. They understood Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It was simple but profound in a great way. And you see over time there's been many schools of thoughts and many fights, and it gets more complex, but the way the Sahabas understood Aqidah in depth, but in a way that was very clear, mashallah, I believe that this is a great reason for the success. With that being said, inshallah ta'ala, we're going to end the program here today and continue, inshallah ta'ala, in our next segment with the Tarbiyah Imaniyah, how to raise the children with a correct Aqidah, with a correct understanding of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and how this will benefit them in the future, inshallah. Thank you, Sheikh Asim, as always, for your immense benefit. For our viewers, thank you for joining us. We hope that you benefited today. You learned a great deal of information and knowledge, and that you put into practice today the things that you learned. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.